I had just probably in the last 4 years learned the electric slide, and there's all those little slide dances. Yeah, I don't
Oh
know.
my gosh.
I don't know them all. I
So
don't.
when you're at a party or an event or anything and the electric slide comes on, what do you do?
I mean, like I said, more so recently, if that was the case, I would go in and do it. But probably
Hmm.
before 5 years ago, I was not doing it at all. I was just watching people do
You're
it.
watching the people. This is a cheerleader. Come on. All right. All right.
Outside doing this.
I see you, Uncle. I see you,
Yeah,
Auntie.
yeah.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Black Student Success Podcast brought to you by Inquire Hire. I'm your host today, Ashley Quire. Today, joining us, we have Jessica Bonner Gomez. Welcome, Jessica.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for being here. I really wanted to invite you to the podcast to talk about speech language pathology. So thank you for taking the time out to join us today.
No problem.
Yeah, of course. So first question we ask all of our guests, um, who are you? This is your moment to boast as we feel that you have reached a level of success where you can do so. So go ahead and describe yourself.
Okay. So, as you just said, I am Jessica Bonner Gomez. I was born and raised in Alabama, specifically the central Alabama area, more so around Birmingham. And I am an education addict, apparently, like just addicted to school. I've been to school
Hmm.
forever. I've gone through, I was that student who was very shy growing up. I'm a very shy kid, and I'm kind of involved into the person that I am today via academia. And I ended up going to school, graduating valedictorian of my high school class, and then going on to earn 4 degrees. The first one being in English and Communication Studies. That was a dual major degree, Bachelor of Arts. And then I went on to get a master's at another university in English with a rhetoric and composition concentration. Then I pivoted and I decided, hey, let me go over to something different because I didn't see myself teaching in the English field, which was my original dream and desire. So I decided to go for speech language pathology. And after not getting accepted the first time, I decided to pick up a second bachelor's degree in communication science disorders, which is the umbrella field for speech language pathology. And so I went and earned that degree. It took me 2 years to earn that second bachelor's degree. And then I applied for a master's in speech language pathology, the program to get into that. And I was accepted, and I took about 2.5 years to complete that program. So I just finished that at the end of 2019. Very happy about that. So now I am a speech language pathologist working in the school system in the Birmingham, the Alabama area. Also, I run For Other Prizes Consulting, which is my tutoring and editing business. And so my tutoring areas of specialty include English, reading, math, up into pre-calculus, as well as some standardized exams such as ACT, SAT, GRE, GED, and ASVAB. And I've been running For the Prizes Consulting since June 1st, 2016. So just a few days ago, we just celebrated 5 years for the Prizes Consulting. So I'm very proud about that, especially given that I was running it while in school, with grad school being the hardest period of time to try to run a business and go to school in a competitive graduate program. So that is basically me.
Wow, that's an impressive resume. That's an impressive resume. I'm happy that you went through it because I was a little intimidated, when I was looking it all over. I'm like, wow, she has 4 degrees. That's amazing. And I think you do an amazing job um, giving out information through social media to teens and younger students. I think she's really good at that. So I'll link her information in the description box, so that you can follow her. And if you need any help with like SAT, ACT prep, and those kind of things, she's really good at giving that information through TikTok videos and things like that. She's really cool. So follow her. All right, so let's go. Let's rewind a little bit. We're impressed. You're amazing. But But let's go into your childhood a little bit. What kind of support system did you have growing up during school?
Okay, so I had my mother and father, and although they did divorce when I was 7, they still were great co-parents, working with me and my sister. I have a younger sister, and so dad was there for whatever, sometimes we had extracurricular activities we had to go through or whatnot, or he would take us different places to see his family members, which was fun. And then mom did too. We lived with mom. But mom was always that stickler for education. Mom was huge on education. So that was daddy's weaker area. But mama picked up the slack with that one. And she was heavy on education. So getting the homework done, working hard to get, as close to an A as possible. I mean, you need to make an A anyway, but hey, she'll take a B, but you need to make an A. So that was mama's view the whole time. Like, hey, we need to work hard for those grades because I'm not playing with you. And she was always very quick to reward us when we did well. And so we had a lot of that growing up. She pushed us so we could see if we had limitations at all regarding being successful and excelling. She helped to, quiet those fears or whatnot. And she really stayed on us about it. And ultimately, that was the main reason that I came to be in a spot to be valedictorian by the time I graduated high school, and to be as much of a proponent for education that I am today because of my mother. And who, by the way, very impressive for my mom. She ultimately, she was in college, but then she married my dad really young when she was in college, and then she was pregnant with me after she married him, and she had to drop out of college at that time to be able to take care of a child and be in a home and family. But even then, she still managed to raise up 2 very smart daughters who, as of today, her oldest child, me, I have 4 degrees, and then my sister, she has 2 degrees. She has a bachelor's and a master's as well. So she raised up 2 kids, each with at least 1 bachelor's and 1 master's. And her highest level of education is an associate's degree. So I find it very impressive. So when I say my mom was stickler for education, she's huge on that. So I had an amazing support system. And then later on, when she remarried and she married my stepfather, he was excellent as well, very great supporter. I couldn't say we wanted for anything regarding the support system between my mom, dad, and stepfather. And so it was awesome.
That's great that you had that support, even though your parents divorced, they were still your foundation. They were still co-parenting and working together. And that's amazing that you had that support system so that when you went on to college, you knew they still had your back, right? I feel like sometimes students kind of get onto campus, and especially if they're really far away from home in their first generation, it's kind of like, hey, I'm out here by myself. But you still had that strong family support system behind you, and that mom that was... I'm that kind of mom, so I get it. My mom was that kind of mom too. We couldn't get anything less than an A. You need to, if you get a B the first time, you need to get it to an A. There's no negotiation. So I get that. And I love that your dad was like the fun dad on this, the complete opposite. So it was a good balance. You had a really good balance growing up. But I do want to know, did you experience any, obstacles during your schooling or even in your career that you can share with our guests?
Yes. So it seemed for the most part when I was in, going in my grade school years and whatnot, I would just say there was bullying then that I had to deal with, especially like 9th grade in high school. That was like the worst year ever of all my years, from, I guess you say, from pre-K to 12th grade, the worst year for bullying for me. And back in that time, I was a freshman in 2001 to 2002 school year. And so smartphones didn't exist. These little cell phones didn't exist. Any of that stuff didn't exist. So there was not that cyberbullying going on at that time, especially not through a cellular device. I mean, you had old-fashioned bullying in the school. But my mama, I call her Mama Bear. She was not having that mess. She was like, I remember one dude came out just randomly one day, and he was in a class that I was taking. He was a 10th grader and I was 9th grader, and they had a biology class. They combined. They had AP 9th graders in that class with those 10th graders. He just came out the blue one day and just walked up to me at my locker, and he poked me in the belly button with his forefinger. And just walked out. And while the girls he used to hang out with were laughing off in the corner. So I told my mother that. My mother was mad. She came up there. She's like, I'm about to.
She was.
That kid was on Oh, bitch, I'm about to press charges. I'm about to call the police. Y'all get something worked out here. All the things. Mom was about to go. I told you, Mama Bear did not play. She was like, I'm
She
not
did
playing.
not. Oh my
We're
goodness.
not doing this. And
Mm-hmm.
so ultimately she did decide to, I think they got him to apologize to me. If I'm remembering correctly, he probably did. And then she decided not to press charges against him. But in a sense, it kind of was worse for me. And I hate to say it at the time. I felt the way I felt at the time. It's like, oh my goodness, they seem to dislike me even more now and distance themselves from me even more now after the mom came up and to defend me or whatnot, because I mean, it made them look bad or made him, the boy who did the act, look bad or whatnot. And they couldn't have that with somebody making one of their own look bad. So then it was just like it seemed like they made fun of me more whatnot. So that was just one of those worst times, was the 9th grade of high school. And as years progressed, I mean, things got a little bit better because I'm assuming that situation started going to be like back of mind for a lot of people. And by the time I graduated high school, it was a better experience. When I would say when I went through college, overall college experience was good. Other than when I first went to my very first college, it's Stanford University, which overall I had a great experience there. I will say though, having come from schools, elementary and my secondary schools, which were predominantly Black, and going to Stanford University, which is a predominantly white school, I did have a culture shock moment when I went there. I mean, I could be the only or one of 2 or 3 Black people in any class at any given time. So getting used to that at first was difficult. I mean, it was tricky. I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I get used to this? And I always had imposter syndrome as an 18-year-old going into college. It was like, oh my goodness, all these kids are coming from some of these kids were coming from affluent high schools. And I was coming from a school that to this day is still considered a failing high school, though I wouldn't say that overall my education was bad there, because I had some excellent teachers in high school, especially math teachers, which is why I tutor math today. It's because I'm math teacher in high school, in that very high school. But I had a lot of classmates coming from those highly esteemed high schools in the nearby area, or even in states surrounding states. And so I had a major imposter syndrome. I was always judging myself next to them and thinking to myself, wow, I don't think I can excel like them. They're probably doing so much better than me with their grades and whatnot. And of course, I didn't have access to anyone's grades, but automatically I'm assuming, yes, I'm not going to do as well as they are going to do. So I did that. And I think it was really that first year I had that imposter syndrome and that culture shock experience. But by the time it got on to the second year, and I ended up doing 5 years because I did declare a second major in communication studies later on, I did have a lot more confidence coming out. And so problem solved. So then I go to this other lady, the woman who's slicing up through my stuff. I try to work with her to get the writing better and whatnot. And this was the other person. This woman would come to be my worst person I would ever have to work alongside in this while I was in this grad program ever. So the other woman was bad, but she was worse. And if it wasn't for her, the first woman tipping her off to that woman, then I wouldn't even be with the woman who was the worst one. So we proceeded to have some issues basically throughout the program, up to the point when I had to report her to the chair. It was just like situations, being African American, and I'm certain this experience as well. You have more.
I already know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
More pressure to support your family, right? At this time, I was living with my mother. It was me and my mom in the house together. This prior to the time I was even engaged to my husband. So, and they had, married and whatnot. So I was living with my mom. We had a mortgage on this house. I'm paying half the mortgage. I'm still having to work, and I'm taking classes in this competitive program, and I'm running for the prizes consultant now in my business, and I'm doing all these things, right? There is more of a pressure to have to do that if you're African American versus if you're not African American. And so I was doing that, and I remember one time relaying that to her, and I said, also, I'm dealing with depression. And this woman looked at me dead in the face, and she said, sometimes in life, you got to find out ways to work through these things. And in the real world, you're going to have to learn to deal with that.
This is a topic that's for another time. This is true though. I like the points that you're hitting on. Often more than not, we have more pressure on our plate. We have more on our plate than our white counterparts when we go to college or wherever, the workplace, life, right? And so I feel like when you have to try to explain it to them and their response is still ignorance and not coming from a place of trying to learn it and understand, that puts you in a really tough position, right? So I feel you on that. I have stories as well. Trust me, feeling the same exact way and dealing with the same exact issues, especially when you're going to a PWI. It's the support groups are there. So I guess in this situation, I would say, I guess, what would your advice be in this situation for someone experiencing the same thing that you experienced, or what advice would you give yourself now to somehow cope with or battle dealing with that?
Well, I did ultimately go to like the higher up of that person who was the chair of the department. That's what I ended up doing. And this is what I would advocate for any student to do. If they're in a similar situation, you need to advocate for yourself, because if you don't advocate for yourself, I mean, that behavior is going to keep on going on and you're going to be ignored. And if you're dealing with depression like I did, I mean, you be looking at worse choices, which I was considering that very year. And so I was like, because I mean, also I was having hard times at home with mom too. We had issues going on between us. So you're feeling depressed and stuff and whatnot. And I got to a point past August of that year, 2018, I went to the chair of the department. I said, after working with this lady all this time, it's been bad. And then supervising me, she was extra nitpicky on everything. It was ridiculous. Stuff that she told me in the real world would matter. Guess what? I'm in the real world now. None of that stuff has ever come up. Ever. And I got held back at school for that too. I got held back. They do extra semester because she was nitpicking on stuff that in the real world, none of these issues exist. So anyway, I went to my chair and I said, okay, now I'm in the position where I have to do an extra semester now because of her. And I don't have the money to fund myself for that. I'm going to need help to pay for that fall in 2019, because I would have graduated May 2019, but I got held back. And I ended up having to drop 2 classes because that woman ended up overloading me clinically that fall, saying I wasn't prepared enough, right? Because she was nitpicking every little thing. And I was overloaded to the point where I had a D and an F in 2 of my classes that you're required to take to pass. So I had to drop them. I had to withdraw. I said, and you only could take them every fall. So I was going to take them the next fall. And so I went to her and I said, I need help. So I just went out and told her right out, I need help paying for this because I don't have the funding to do it. And I know I'm doing loans, but I'm not trying to get more loans and whatnot. And so I did get some pushback off of that. Like, I don't know, we can do that. And then I did this next thing, which I say I highly recommend students try this too. Not to just really scare anybody, but and I said, well, I may have to look into legal action for given what I've gone through, if I'm not given something. And I think I said, look into legal action so I can get it. That's what I said. I think I'm going to look into legal action so I can get it then. And she looked at me at that time, and then she kind of asked me what the other Black student, she actually was African, not African-American, but African. It was only 2 of us out of a cohort of 24 students. Everyone else is white, 2 of us were Black. She was African. And I told her what she said about the first lady I told you about. And she said, I think the woman right out said about her to me one day, I think she's racist. I think she does not like Black people. And that chair, the person's eyes widened majorly. She was worried. She was worried because that could look like a huge stain against their school, which again is a PWI. So they didn't want that. So my view is like, and I'm advising students, go in there and advocate for yourself, point that stuff out that, hey, this could be, I need help. And then, if they give some pushback, hey, I may consider having to take some legal action regarding this because I have all of this evidence that all this stuff has happened. My white classmates, on the other hand, not going through it,
experiencing the same thing, but you and the other African American or African student are experiencing the exact same thing.
And then even with that first woman I told you about who had the issue with me, I talked to several of my white classmates that said they had the same response. Oh, she's the sweetest ever.
Interesting. So basically what we're learning is you need to be an advocate for yourself. Stick up for yourself, stand up for yourself, especially at a PWI. But then another thing that you did was you reached out to the other Black student. If there's more than one, sometimes it's just you, sometimes it's just you and one other person in the class. Reach out to the other student and see if they're feeling the same way, kind of talk to each other, find that support. If you do have a diversity, equity, and inclusion or community type of multicultural center, that you can talk to if you're an undergrad, reach out to them and look for support and look for tips and advice.
Yes, and one thing I would say, oh, I'm sorry, I was going to say one more thing regarding that situation. I ultimately she did talk to the dean, and I was rewarded enough money that paid off, I think, 90% of the tuition for that next fall, which is great. I also requested that the whole faculty of that department go through diversity or cultural sensitivity training, and they did set that up for the April of the next year. If this was November when this went down,
because you spoke up. Look at you.
I want that happening. I want that to happen. And it also did happen some months later. Now, I didn't help the woman I had the issue with because I had some more issues with her after the fact. But I will give credit to the department for even implementing that period.
That's amazing. So you just helped how many students coming after you because you spoke up and you were an advocate for the Black community. Yes. Sometimes when we're in college, we're like, it's just about me, right? Or it's just about my family. And I need to support them and I need to help them. But I guess if we kind of get in this whole mindset where we're here for each other, right? For the whole Black community to grow and elevate. If there's something, if there's a way that you can help and support and give back in that way, just by speaking up, do it. That's what you're there for. So
totally.
That's amazing. So let's get into speech pathology a little bit. I'm curious about speech and language pathology. I had some really close friends in college that I took classes with. For some reason, we took a lot of classes because we were in a lot of psychology classes together. I'm trying to figure out how that all fell together, but we did. And they're amazing people. But I want to know more about this field and what skills do you need to be good in it?
Okay, so speech language pathology. Well, I was the first. Like you hear the word speech, so communication for sure. You got to have some communication. Now you can't go in and not communicate with your individuals. You got to have critical thinking skills. So sometimes you're going to have to make decisions on the spot. But you got to critically think through them. Some people, they like to take that easier route of just doing a quick fix thing, but we all know quick fixes in any situation do not work out in the long run. So you need to be a critical thinker, a communicator. If you're in the school system, you need to, I'll say this for any area of speech language pathology, you need patience because our field works with people from, infants to old age. And so it depends on what area you're in. For instance, our areas are speech, that's your ability just to talk, right? Your ability to talk and how you enunciate words, things of that nature. And then also language. How are you communicating? Are you processing? Are you understanding when people are talking to you? Are you clear when you're communicating to other people? Are they understanding you, what you're saying? Things of that nature, and swallowing, which I thought was a very surprising thing when I got in. And babies adults have issues with swallowing. Sometimes we got a little mechanism in our throat to help us swallow. Never thought about it in a million years. And they said babies, sometimes like you hear about them at birth, they cannot take the nipple from mom's nipple or the nipple on the bottle. And it's something with the swallowing function. And they're not getting the nourishment. So speech therapists who
I didn't know that was a thing. That just made me sad for a second.
That was the most surprising thing I found out. I was like, really?
Wow. Interesting.
Obviously don't get their nutrition, they could die. So if you catch this stuff early on, there can be methods to help with that. And then also on the older age, it can happen to anyone actually. I think people who also had different disorders, and people who've had traumatic brain injury, you can have that in a car accident, right? If you had a terrible car accident, but you survived, traumatic brain injury. Also, people who've had strokes, it can affect your ability to swallow. They know that. Also, having a stroke can affect your ability to speak because your ability to speak is on the left side of your brain. If you have a stroke and it hits that part of the brain that controls your language, if you've ever met some people with strokes sometimes who've had strokes, and it seems like it's the hardest thing to get words out. That's what's happened to them. That's what's happened. So speech therapists would work with them to get as much of the language back as possible. So that's why I say it's very important to be patient, because there's a spectrum of disorders that people are dealing with. And it's already hard enough for them as it is, especially if they're an adult and they were once living a life that it was like normal. And, it was their everyday life. And all of a sudden they got stopped because a traumatic brain injury after an accident, car accident or something like that, or they've had a stroke and now they cannot communicate with their family anymore the way they used to. So there's a lot of depression around that for a lot of those individuals. And some of them bounce back quicker than others. So you definitely, if nothing else, you got to have that patience.
So patience and like compassion and just being in it for the long haul to help them get to as close, gain as much language as they had before and speech as they had before. And then you're working from infancy to old age.
Yeah. And so and that's the areas that we can all go into. And so for me, I'm in that school age range. And so right now I have worked with high schoolers as well. My current placement, though, I'm working with elementary school students. So I work with pre-K kids through 5th grade right now. And so we're focusing on articulation. So like some kids have a hard time saying just a letter, like it could be any word that starts with an R. You know, you've heard little kids sometimes on movies and TV shows that say wabbit instead of rabbit. Now it's supposed to be time, like most kids do that actually when you're really little. Most of us have done that. When you get to a certain age, you're supposed to have grown out of it. Some kids don't. So that's one of the reasons why they require speech therapy for that. So I'll help them and I'm sitting there with the kids like, do your mouth like this. And I'm doing that. And so it's a lot of it just modeling. That's called modeling. And you have to have them watch you to do it and whatnot. And then with language, if they're not understanding some things, sometimes I'll say, what's this item here? They might point it out and say, it's this. I had one girl, actually, she was confused between the difference between a dog and a cat. And so like a preschool age child. And so we kind of had to work on it. I had to expose her multiple times to pictures of a cat versus a dog. So eventually it could finally click for her that this is a cat. And one day it did click for her. So I was glad. So that is actually all a part of language. We don't think about it as part of language, but your ability to understand what you're seeing or reading, that's part of language. And what people are saying to you, that's part of language. So I help the kids with that as well. There's some kids with stuttering. We have different methods for helping them to better live with that. Stuttering is not one of those things you can get rid of. It's one of those things you can help them live better.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like, the president, Joe Biden, current president Joe Biden, he stutters. And so he's had to work very hard over his lifetime to kind of do different methods and techniques so that his stuttering is not as prominent when he's speaking. So you can still note it when he speaks, but he has to work at it. And so it's more so like a lifelong
journey.
Yeah, it's a lifelong journey that you're dealing with.
So there's different types of, I guess, disorders. I don't want to call it a disorder if it's not a disorder, but I guess areas of opportunity that anywhere from small little kids to adults can work on to regain or to develop their speech and language. It's very interesting. I am learning so much.
Developmental disability and autism. Work with them as well to kind of better communicate with others around them. Yes.
Wow. You work with a wide variety of different ages and that's so exciting. I love your field. I thought it was very interesting to hear about it, but I'm learning even more from it. So that's so cool. All right. So this is the question we ask everyone. It's a question that we felt was made sense because of the name of the podcast, right? But also because everyone is coming from a different place and everyone has a different end goal or journey that they will be on or that they're looking to achieve. And so basically the question is, how do you define success?
Success is kind of like when they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I think success is in the eye of the beholder. It has to involve goals. If you have goals and you're striving for those goals and those goals are challenging for you to achieve, and you put on your mindset that you need to have to get to achieve your goals, break down your big goals to small ones, and you work at them and you finally reach that big goal or whatnot, for me, that's success for me.
That's great. No, I agree with it as well. It's not necessarily about having a bunch of money or the big title. I love that you say set a goal, and as long as it's challenging and you achieve it, that's success. That's success. That's awesome. All right, let's switch gears here. Let's get into the fun questions. I love these questions. All All right. First question for you, Jessica. What's one thing about you that might get your black card revoked?
Girl, I do not know these little all these dances. I had just probably in the last 4 years learned the electric slide, and there's all those little slide dances. Yeah, I don't
Oh
know.
my gosh.
I don't know them all. I don't.
So when you're at a party or an event or anything and the electric slide comes on, what do you do?
I mean, like I said, more so recently, if that was the case, I would go in and do it. But probably before 5 years ago, I was not doing it at all. I was just watching people do it.
You're watching the people. This is a cheerleader. Come on. All right. All right.
Outside doing this.
I see you, Uncle. I see you, Auntie.
Yeah, I don't know all the dances that that's come for us from Black people. I don't know all those.
Oh man. I feel like you're missing out a little bit.
I don't know.
Oh, now you're not missing out a little bit because you just learned the dances. So you're good. We're all good there. Okay.
I just said I don't know most of those dances. I don't know.
I don't know that. That's hilarious. The other really good question we like to ask people is, what's one rite of passage you think all students should go through? So a couple of examples would be being broke at college, like it has to hurt. Losing your keys, that kind of thing. So I guess what's one rite of passage you think everyone should go through?
I would say working a low paying job. Now I know people like the wages are increasing or whatnot, but I've had to work in low paying jobs, and I've even had to work in them with all my degrees now because I needed money. But one of the things that helped me to see is like the lives of people around me. It's like no matter how educated I will be, I always want to be a person that other people can relate to and find down to earth. And I started working those jobs because I needed more income, but being in the space with the other people, I get to know them, their real lives. These are everyday people. Some people are really struggling and just trying to make ends meet. And this is it for them as far as their job. You stay down to earth. You stay humble. Mm-hmm. You don't ever get to a point, no matter how many degrees you get, how successful you become, how much money you make, such that you get to a point that you're looking down on these people like, look at them. Like,
right.
Yeah. Every student needs to go through that. Mm-hmm. And you also need to go through that experience to deal with customer service too. That goes in with the job.
That's what I was thinking about, that customer service. Customer's always right. Keep that smile on your face.
Yeah, they fussing at you. You cannot be going off.
No, you can't.
That's not going to work for you in the real world. Like you just said, keep on that smile on that face and keep it moving. If you need to get your supervisor to get involved, which I used to have to do, I used to work at the honey baked ham shop for Christmas time, Thanksgiving. Some people was not happy about the hams and I was like, I'm sorry, ma'am, or sir, mainly it's the mainly woman, just nitpicking everything. But had to get the manager like, ma'am, okay, I'll get a manager for you to talk about it. And then the manager will come in and handle that situation and be done. You don't have to go and escalate. Just do what you can and then tone it down. It's gonna be okay.
Just breathe. I know they're blaming you because you're the first point of contact. It's always your fault, right?
Yes.
And you just gotta know it's a test. It's definitely a training for the real world, because as we've heard, it doesn't get any easier. And staying humble, I thought that was an excellent point. Always stay humble. Yeah. One, you never know. And remember where you started.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
You never know. All right. Thank you so much, Jessica, for joining us today. It has been a pleasure chatting with you. You are one of my favorite people that's out there. She has so much energy and so many stories. She's amazing. I'll go ahead and link her information in the description box. Please follow her if you're looking for extra tutoring and things like that. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the podcast to help us spread the word. Maybe you don't need the information, but by liking and sharing, you're spreading the word to someone who may need it. So thank you. It helps us with the algorithm. All right, everyone. Until next time, thank you, Jessica, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And until next time, everyone, peace.
Bye.